Hi, this is Anita from Dusty Roads Podcast, or from our blog, A Bus on a Dusty Road. When many people think about Christmas, we of course think about Santa Claus and we think about the reindeer. But today I want to talk a little about the reindeer, or in particular, reindeer herds that are located in Sapmi, or what some people also know as Lapland. Sapmi, or Lapland, is essentially the northern part of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and a part of Russia. They're estimated that there are about 80,000 Sami people that are living in this area. And they have been here for thousands of years. And traditionally, they are reindeer herders, which essentially means that they were nomads who would travel around with their reindeer. And they would, live in different herding grounds, different times of the year, according to the needs of their reindeer. I find this really fascinating because this is similar to what I've talked about before. Some of the nomadic herders who are living in places like Mongolia would do the same thing. They would travel around in groups with their herds to go from place to place. If you're interested, there is a podcast that I have also given on that, and I talk about some of the Mongolian herders. But getting back to the reindeer, and in particular, the effects of global warming on these reindeer. Today, the weather has warmed up so much that it's usually around 0 or about 32 degrees or so, a lot of times up in this area. So what happens is that the rains will come instead of the snow, and there will be this huge blanket of ice on the ground. It will be so strong or so hard to get through that you need an axe in order to get through it. In the past, it would just mainly snow. So the reindeer could take their little paws and they can dig through the snow and they would be able to find something to eat. But today, when they try to do the same thing, all they hit is ice. So the reindeer herder now have to round up their herds and make sure that their herds are being fed. If they don't do this, then essentially their reindeer herds will starve to death. I really find this as a tragic sign of global warming. We think of global warming in a lot of other ways, but we don't really think about these poor reindeer in this very northern part of the world who are basically losing what they can eat because of the effect of global warming or the fact that the ice is so strong that they can't find the food that they need. And this is despite the fact that reindeer herders today are using all kinds of modern technology. That they're, herding their reindeer using snowmobiles, they're using tracking systems, they're doing all this types of modern technology in order to be able to find their reindeer. But even with all this modern technology, they still have to round up the reindeer and find the reindeer and feed them. This, of course, you can imagine is extra work for these nomadic herders who normally could just allow the reindeer to roam free all winter long. But now they have to feed them. And so this has become a problem. So many of the reindeer herders have said that maybe they'll stop herding. It's just become too difficult. It's become too hard of a business. If the rate of global warming continues, by the end of the century, the climate in northern Finland could represent that of southern Finland. This essentially means that the weather change and the effect upon this global warming and weather could affect the culture and livelihood of reindeer herding. And not only that, it could affect the reindeer herds themselves. These are animals who for thousands of years have lived up in this cold climate and have been able to not just survive there, but thrive there. They've been able to find the food through the snow. They have essentially been animals that are able to thrive in this cold environment and climate. It also means that many of the experts believe that we could start to lose the Sami, or this Lapland culture that has been around for over 1,000 years. The Sami culture is a fantastic culture. It's really amazing. If you look at it today, there are about 50,000 Sami who live in Norway, 20,000 in Sweden, in the northern part of Sweden, and 8,000 in Finland, and 2,000 in Russia. So almost all the Sami, or the Laplanders, as some Scandinavians call them, they live in Scandinavia. They are known to speak 10 different dialects or more of the Sami language. There's so many different types of languages and dialects of this language. That's why you'll see their name Sami written in many, many different ways. In the past, many people use the name Lapland because they called it the land of Lap, or Lappish or Lapdik, but actually the Sami consider that name a derogatory term. And so they preferred the area to be called Sapmi instead of Lapland. The Sami have always made their livelihood in coastal fishing because, some of them, remember, live on the coast, fur trapping, sheep herding, and reindeer herding. And they're famous for their semi-nomadic lifestyle for the reindeer herding. What's really fascinating about this is that if the Sami lose their reindeer herds, or they stop herding, or they stop their fishing, stop their lifestyle, then we're going to lose a very ancient and old culture. What's fascinating too about all of this is that the knowledge of the reindeer and the knowledge of the herds is passed down a lot from generation to generation. So even though you have experts on reindeer and all of this, they still maybe don't have all that knowledge that's been passed down from grandfather to father to son to daughter, that this thousands of years of knowledge about the reindeer and the herds and how to work the herds and how to feed the reindeer, and all this other knowledge has been passed down through all the families and through the generations. So if we lose this culture, then we're really going to lose the culture of the reindeer. And then I guess we'll have to ask ourselves, what's going to happen to Santa Claus? Well, maybe we don't really need to ask that, but Santa Claus and the reindeer and the sleighs all come from this part of the world. So what happens when there's no longer any reindeer herds, or the reindeer herds aren't able to survive, or the Sami stop becoming reindeer herders? This is kind of a bit of a fascinating and interesting question. Today only about 10% of the Sami are reindeer herders. And the reindeer herders, provide, there's some reindeer milk, which I've never personally tried myself, but there's fur, there's meat, and of course they are also used for transportation. They've lived together with these reindeer for 1,000 years or more. And even though they have all the new modern technology, they're still using a lot of the old ways of working with this. So I personally would be very sorry to see the Sami, or this culture of this place, completely disappear. I would be sorry and very sad to hear that the reindeer now have become almost extinct, or there's very few of them around, that the herds have died off because the weather was too warm or they couldn't find things to eat. And I'd be sad to learn that the Sami language is no longer being spoken because these people have stopped living their traditional lifestyle or living the way that they once did. This land, this northern part of the world that's way up there that many of us never think about, had the Sami people living on it for thousands of years. They have rich traditions, language, culture, and a way of life. It would simply be a great loss for not only Santa Claus and his reindeer, but it'd be a great loss for the world if this culture and the Sami people disappeared. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and please do consider to subscribe and tell your friends about us. We love to hear from you, and we thank you for listening because we know without you, our listeners, this would not be possible. Thank you.